The question is that the motion be agreed to. I call the member for Banks.
Well, thank you very much, Mr Deputy Speaker. I'm very pleased to be speaking in favour of this terrific motion moved by my friend the member for Mitchell, and so passionately and ably seconded by the member for Reid. Now, this matter, Mr Deputy Speaker, really opens up a very clear fault line between the position of those opposite and the position of the government. This is really fundamental stuff, Mr Deputy Speaker, because on the one hand over there you have a government knows best, bureaucracy knows best. We know that what's required is more regulation, more legislation, more forms for businesses to fill out philosophy. And what you have over here is the opposite, and that is a philosophy that says the best thing we can do as a government is unshackle and free the people of Australia and the small businesses of Australia to be their best. That's the difference, Mr Deputy Speaker. We don't believe that the government is well placed to tell small businesses what to do about every aspect of their daily lives. We believe that whilst there is a place for limited regulation, the right word is limited. Limited regulation, Mr Deputy Speaker. You know, I've had quite a bit of experience in small business and large, and so perhaps can speak on this from both sides of the equation. I'd have to say that one of the worst experiences of my career in business was the burdens you have in small business of just basically filling out forms for the government. You know, there's nothing worse than spending that 10 or 12 or 14 hours a day working on the thing that actually matters for your business, selling a product, developing a product, hiring the staff, all of which, Mr Deputy Speaker, is hard. There's uncertainty. You never know what's around the corner, what's going to happen 6 or 12 months down the track, and you work your guts out, Mr Deputy Speaker. Sometimes you have people relying on you, people whose mortgages depend on the success of the business that you are managing. And the worst thing is getting home at the end of that 12 or 14 hours and then spending a whole bunch of time filling out forms for government, Mr Deputy Speaker. We believe that that sort of intervention by government should be as limited as possible. There are some fantastic examples of deregulation that the member for Kooyong has shepherded through this place in recent weeks, Mr Deputy Speaker, and one of them I wanted to speak about, shepherded very ably through the House, and one of them I wanted to speak about affects my electorate in particular. Has been in recent weeks is the change on Chinese business visitors who contribute an enormous amount to our economy and especially to my electorate of Banks. Now, previously, every 12 months they had to fill out another form for a visa. And as you can imagine, many of these people are in frequent contact in my electorate and across Australia, and huge burden, lots of red tape every 12 months. Sensible reform, now a multiple entry 3-year visa for Chinese business visitors. And that's a very, very simple and sensible reform. What about the standard agreement template, Mr Deputy Speaker? Now, it's hard enough to get your mind around one government form, let alone 50 of them. You know, government forms using the bureaucratic language of which they are fond are not always the easiest things to deal with. But we had a situation previously where there were dozens of forms and very, very confusing. So the standard agreement template, which has been pushed through by the member for Kooyong, is a terrific initiative. What about the credit card change, Mr Deputy Speaker? Previously, if it was over $10,000, you had to go through the whole invoicing procedure. Obviously, there are credit checks involved. There's a whole lot of complexity there, of course, Mr Deputy Speaker. Now payments up to $20,000 can be done by credit card. Simple. It's what happens in the real world, and it's what should happen with the government as well. The Kung Fu Panda story, Mr Deputy Speaker, I probably don't need to tell you that one again. 3D classification, just silly, and good to see that important reform. The paid parental leave reform, championed by the Minister for Small Business, getting rid of that paid clerk penalty. Again, take away these processes that don't add value, that just get in the way, that just make life harder for small business. That's what we believe in. And what about ACMA? Previously, ACMA had to investigate every single complaint, no matter how absurd or how dated. I've seen some of those complaints, Mr Deputy Speaker, and they can be absurd and they can be dated. And it's very good that there is now its discretion whether or not to proceed with complaints. So terrific initiative by the member for Mitchell to move this motion, and I commend it to the House.